All right. It's Worldwide Chels back again with Johnathan for another episode. Yeah. Okay, here we go. We're in the other side of the coin. Of course, the mini series continues on, and I love it. I love it when my man Sadiq is here. Honestly, he just gives me a good vibe, man. Like he's just a happy guy, and I love it. And Johnathan, as usual, is just my man. It might as well be his YouTube channel. Honestly, you know what, Jonathan, this is your YouTube channel. So yeah, look, guys, we're going to continue on with this series of the youth performances. So far, we've talked about Tamori. Yesterday, we talked about Tammy, which is released, and people really enjoyed it because it allows us to elaborate on these players a lot better than just simply tweeting about them, which creates a lot of controversy at times, and people misunderstand us. So today, we want to talk about Mason Mount. So let's get straight into it. I want to firstly talk to my man, Worldwide Chels. Mason Mount, when he first started this season, honestly, I don't know about you, I didn't follow him too much last season in Derby. I'm being honest, man. I saw some snippets of him here and there. There were some really good goals that he scored. I thought, okay, well, no, he's a decent player. But I honestly didn't think he had a good preseason, but my man, and I know you're going to back me on this, our man was Barkley. Like I knew for us it was going to be Barkley starting in number 10. I had no idea that it was going to be Mason Mount who's going to be, starting in that position. But nonetheless, he started and he looked pretty good. He looked lively. He looked like the kind of player in the beginning stages. He was pressing hard. He scored some really, really good goals off pressing as well. But one of my issues in the beginning stages of his play was that he pressed so hard, he worked so hard. By the time 60 minutes came, he was finished. There was no more energy left for him to do that. So how did you initially feel about Mason Mount in the preseason time? And then obviously, I know you back Barkley as well, so you got to tell me about that story too. So let me know about Mason Mount.
I mean, first of all, I apologize that I look so tired. I just woke up about 25 minutes ago, but I had to come on with Man and Miz, of course. So, yeah, I mean, look, you guys know me. I love Barkley a lot. I thought every preseason has been here, or nearly every preseason has done really well, and I thought he'll be starting in front of Mount at the time. But I think, as you said, Mount with pressing, I did think he did really well, especially against Leicester, where we didn't really play too well, and he changed the game for me. Like he opened it up basically. So I saw signs of positivity from the player. I'm not sure about the tiredness after 60 minutes, man. I think he was the only one that used to go on throughout the whole game. I think that's one of his strong point of his games. That's the one thing I can say about him. I think he presses so much that he never gives up, and I think that's probably his best thing about his play, in my opinion. But in terms of technical, I think that's what's lacking, and that's something that's you don't have naturally. But he's very young. He can learn dependent on the players around him, not just him. It's the same with Tammy. But when you look at Hudson-Odoi, for example, he has that special thing about him where you think, he's going to take on that man and he's going to take us to that next level and run into the box and cross it in or shoot, etc. Mason Mount, Tammy is like, they have to do the position correctly. And I think expectations for Mason Mount were too high from fans because they really wanted to see a top player. And, some fan base, I'm not saying all fan base, but some of the fan base in Chelsea just don't want Mason Mount to do well. And, for me, I like to criticize the player, but I think for his age, he done really well in his first season, but I'm sure we'll be getting into that very soon. But overall, Barkley let us down. I don't know why he does this at the start of the season. He might have one or two decent games and then he just turns off. I don't understand it, but he just needs to be more consistent as well. As long as we have competition up there, and as long as Loftus-Cheek comes back very slowly, I'm looking forward to them playing next season as well.
Now, I mean, look, I completely understand what you're saying as well. Johnathan, how did you feel in the first, few games where you saw him start? Did you expect him to start as well, or did you think it was going to be someone like Barkley?
I don't think anyone expected him to be in the first 11, in the Man United game, first game of the season. No one expected that. everyone, he was at Vitesse where he did really well. He was at Derby where he did pretty well. And yes, his numbers are not, top level, but he is still young. He's 21 still. So I think it was a massive surprise. I mean, when Lampard came in, because of Barkley's talent, now I'm not his biggest fan, I'm not his biggest hater. I thought he would mould a little bit into that Lampard way and really kick on this season. And I think partly down to attitude, partly down to a few little things, and obviously Mount's emergence, and the other midfielders doing pretty well. I just think there's a few reasons why Barkley didn't quite make it. And I think Mount's certainly taken the opportunity in his stride, and he's probably now the go-to man for Lampard. I mean, he played 41 games this season, which is the most any player played for Chelsea.
After Aspilicueta, I think. Yeah.
No, he's played more. Aspilicueta, I think, played 38. So he's played the most. And if you look at, I've looked at 3-4 different websites last night just to check this, but whilst he had quite a few niggly injuries and times where you'd think he wouldn't be in the starting 11, he didn't miss any games because of injuries. And he might have had them. He might have played through the pain barrier, but he didn't miss any games. Now, for a player of 21 to play that amount of games in, the left wing position, the attacking mid position, centre mid sort of at times, to be so versatile at such a young age in so many games, you have to give massive respect to him. So, as I say, for any fans that don't want him to succeed, then that's a silly agenda, because even me, as Chelsea said, Sadiq said, I will criticise a player if I feel it's necessary. I'm not going to go over the line and be rude or disrespectful. But if a player's done something bad, I will happily, call it out. But with this guy, yes, I would love a few more goals and assists. But he was our second, third top scorer. I know 5 or 6 was kind of the second boundary in the Premier League. But that's not bad at all for a guy his age. So, kind of just to kick off where I sit on him, I'm fairly happy, and I hope next season I just want those numbers to just increase a little bit.
Yeah. Now to Sadiq again, I guess it was, as we both have agreed. Both of you guys have said that it was a bit of a surprise, but it was just it was a nice surprise. It was working hard, but there was a large part of the fan base. He's one player that it gave us a mad headache. Like it was a controversial, like it was 50-50. And one of the issues that the other side of this spectrum was sort of worried about is that he was playing in a particular position where they demanded a lot more clinical passing, they demanded a lot more vision. And even though he was working hard, as we saw, and Frank was using him in a particular manner, which was to press hard and really try and win the ball from the up front and really put the pressure. How do you feel? Did you ever think, I wish I got a little bit more from Mount? Did you ever think what others were saying was correct? Or did you think, you know what, this is okay, he's doing what Frank's saying?
Miz, you've got an agenda against Mount, man. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. No, I honestly understand what you're saying. I think I went to, which game was it? Was it Brighton or was it Watford? I think Watford away. I went to my first away game. And there was a chance where, what I've seen is when he's on that left side where Hazard used to come in from, he doesn't look too comfortable on the ball to shoot. Like, I think even at the beginning of the season, he was shooting early outside the box, and it wasn't going in or like a serious chance. But I really feel a bit of hesitation that I see live, in my opinion, and it's something that's going to be coming on, in the next couple of years. You'll learn from it. The one against, I think it was in Champions League, I can't remember, I think against Bayern, where he ran on, like he makes these good runs, but he just kind of hesitates, or the final thinking isn't there. And that's something that Chelsea fans have been calling out on. Creativity is another one that you touched upon as well, where we've seen it with our wingers, we've seen it with William, we've seen it with Pedro. They don't provide enough, and this is why we're looking at Mount to do something. And when sometimes the game is dull and boring, and we're passing sideways, passing backwards, there is no one creating. So I think that's why maybe sometimes he was made as a scapegoat, but I totally understand where you're coming from in terms of his final thinking wasn't there. But that's probably something that you have to learn with experience. It's the same with Tammy as well. Like, I think his final positioning in the box wasn't there either, and he could have had a lot more goals, even though he had about 13-14 goals this season. So that is something that they will learn from, and they only learn from good competition. And whoever comes in, or if Loftus-Cheek comes back and plays, that is something that they'll both learn from each other, basically. And it depends on who's playing with them. They have to play consistently. What was Lampard's best 11? I don't know. Like, only Mason Mount was guaranteed with Asby. But if you keep changing it, you're not going to know how they're going to play all the time.
Exactly right, man. Exactly. Johnathan, we've now gone through being, shocked that he started, but it was good that he started. He did well. Then he had a nice little moment in the beginning, when we were going through the winning streak and Tammy was scoring the goals as well. He was in and around the goals too. And we looked lively. And then came the moment where the whole team started going up and down. We would win one, we'd lose one, we'd draw one, we'd win one. And I feel this player got a lot of criticism during that time because fans were finding a reason to, as Sadiq was saying, he's been scapegoated. And there were a few bad performances. One I could remember was, I think it was the 4-4 against Ajax where he did not look good at all. Mason Mount, I think he was substituted out as well after 60th minute or halftime or something like that. He didn't look that great. And then, fans were really, really getting in the back of him. Eventually, I think he was finally dropped because a lot of fans were saying that, he's Frank's son, he's never going to get dropped. He's never going to get dropped. And then finally he was dropped for a few games. How do you think, was that fair to do with a player like him, knowing that it's a transfer ban season? Is it fair to go after a player like that when, one, they're young, and two, you can clearly see that the player's trying really, really hard?
Yeah, and he clearly wants to play for Chelsea. So many photos and videos have come out of him. Whenever he talks, he clearly has a massive affiliation and love for Chelsea. Now, how you can hate on any player that does that to begin with is beyond me, because what fans want is for players to play for the shirt, and he certainly does that. So I think with him, Lampard took a few of the younger players out of the limelight or out of the firing line. But because of his versatility, and because we didn't have the Loftus-Cheek and Barkley wasn't always in the squad, we didn't have anyone to fill that hole. And because he could play in various positions, I felt Lampard was a bit obliged to play him. And, of course, he's got a bit of a liking to him. He's had him at Derby, and he believes in his ability. So I think also he was let down a little bit by his teammates, because if you're Williams, Pedro didn't play as much, but Hudson-Odoi, Pulisic, those other players were creating a little bit more. It would have taken the strain off. But, we started so well, had a great start to the season. That Leicester goal epitomises what Mount does. He closes down Ndidi. He's one of the best defensive mids in the league, and gets a shot away, scores 1-1. Okay, we draw the game. But the Norwich game, he combined well with Tammy, the Wolves game. So, he got goals in at the start of the season. And there was always going to be a tail off, as with any young player. And it just so happened that everyone else kind of tailed off as well. And he wasn't really helped. And because he was constantly playing, he was always the one needed to create. And he couldn't always do that. And I mean, the way he presses, the way he closes down opponents is what no other Chelsea player really does in our system.
No.
His ball work is incredible. Whenever I've seen him live, on a TV, you can see things a lot clearer, replays, and they show you so many different angles. But when you're live, you actually see players off the ball. You see what's not on screen. And when you watch him, that Everton game, 4-0, I know
he was phenomenal.
Yeah, we played really well in that game, and he came off after 60-odd minutes with a little injury. But he was superb. From the first 10 minutes, I said to my dad, this guy's scoring today. And what happened within Pedro gives him the ball, and he first time inside left of the penalty area, ripped the ball home. So, I just think he's always putting himself there to be in the firing line. I mean, he takes set pieces, he takes free kicks. He's always putting his neck on the line, which other players don't always do. He's always sticking his neck out. So you've got to respect him for that. And maybe he isn't as creative as we'd want him to be. I get that.
Yeah.
But, the last thing I'll say is between the lines, he does really well getting in between the midfield and defence, and and his position, is always changing, so it's hard to mark him. So, yeah, I just feel like, yes, I want more of him next season, but for a start, for the first season at Chelsea in the Premier League, he didn't do too badly.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, I just want to touch upon Man's point, of course, when he spoke about the wingers. It's the same with like Pulisic. For me, I'm like one of his biggest fans, and I felt like it took him quite a while to get into his form, and then he went on that good run where he scored those goals, and then unfortunately got injury. Hudson-Odoi was coming back from an injury. People had high expectations, like he was going to be the next biggest thing, and I don't think it's fans in the stadium that have a problem with these players immediately, where if you're not doing well, they get up on them. I think it's just a small minority on Twitter.
Yeah.
Like we just know how toxic they are. If someone does something wrong, they're getting called out on. And it's the same, like, when we look at Mason Mount, I was one that kind of criticized him a couple of times because he didn't create enough. But when we actually look at the game, we didn't even create anything. I asked you in your previous streams, what is Lampard's tactics? We don't know what his actual plan was. And that's one thing that, if we don't know who's our best 11, if we don't know who's, what tactics we're playing, and if our wingers around us, the player that we're looking at and talking about, aren't performing, how can we expect this man to do it by himself? And also, what Man said was about his pressing. And this is one reason why I want Kante back in the team. If we have Mount there, why can't Kante stay a bit defensive in the two that can help maybe Jorginho, Billy Gilmour? But I mean, that would be for another day discussion. But like you said about Mount's pressing, if we have that guy that can do that job, that can get that ball, then it kind of like shows you what he's capable of and why other players around us can actually play in different positions behind him. But that's just for me to say it.
We look so different with Mount when he's pressing his heart out. Like, I remember the match against Valencia in the Champions League when we lost, and he got injured and he got taken off. And we looked lost after when he was taken off. We lost all energy, everything that he was doing in the beginning.
Was he left wing in that game? He was left wing in that game, right?
I think it was left wing. He was taken off and Pedro came in. And honestly, all the pressing was gone. Everything was gone. And then, advantage was towards Valencia all of a sudden. And the match became kind of even. And there's been many instances like that in this season where I felt every time Mount wasn't either starting or was taken off when the score was 0-0 or 1-1 or something like that, I could feel the energy sapping away because no one, I feel, presses the way he does. Which is, I think people need to understand that people say Jorginho, he's the one who looks after the tempo of the match, but I think they forget the fact that Mount has a lot to play in the tempo as well. How the way he presses just G's up everyone else around him as well. Now, what I want to ask you, Sadiq, is in the January sort of time, I guess, when we had the break, and then he was sort of up and down just before the break. He had the break. He came back after the break and he started to, I was a little bit skeptic just before the break. I was like, man, what's happening with Mount? I'm not really sure where he's going. Is he really Chelsea level? Like, he had a pretty good start, then he sort of laid off. But after the break, Sadiq, honestly, I saw a different player. Like, he just got refreshed. I think there was the games against Tottenham, then there was games against Man United, even though we didn't win, but his performance was good. But the Liverpool and Everton just before the lockdown, man, this boy, 90 minutes engine, man. Like, his passing was getting better. He was in and around with assists as well, with corners, and he was scoring goals as well. So did you feel at that point that there is a good player in here that we could possibly work around in the future?
Yeah, of course. Look, Lampard knows him more than anyone, definitely more than any of us, basically. Like you said, from Derby, he's seen what he's capable. I've seen, like you said, we didn't watch too much of Derby, but I did see some games, and what I liked about him was he offered different things. Like, we know him for pressing and trying to get the ball mainly this season, but he's definitely someone that can be like a second striker where he can run onto the ball if someone heads it on. Like we're seeing, like we want from like Mertens, etc. So for me, Mount was like that guy. Like, what you said about the break, it just shows that sometimes we need to remember these guys are humans, man. They need breaks. They need.
Yeah.
But what was the problem was we didn't have depth. We were crying out for January signings. I was definitely crying out for signings. I was doing videos per day on those signings, and some of them didn't happen. But some of them didn't happen. Some of them didn't happen. So you can tell the frustration from Chelsea fans that they were looking for an excuse, whether it was a new player, whether it was at Lampard, whether it was at the board. We saw Lampard's body language in press conferences. He was very sad. He was very down, in fact. So, I think later on down the line, 5-6 years time, I think Lampard will obviously tell us what actually happened that first season where he wanted players but didn't get any players, and he'll tell us who they were looking at, etc. So the pressure was on. William wasn't performing. William was performing. He was actually maybe top 5 players for some time. Yeah. In fact, Lampard was rating him highly, but for me, it was a bit of consistency from the players around Mount that we just got used to saying, Mount's not doing good enough, Mount's not doing this, Mount's not doing that. Yeah. And it's because he was playing every single game. And as soon as he took that break, came back stronger, looks good. And you know what, honestly, 2 or 3 signings, that we're crying for can change a lot in this team. And we just need some fresh life to help players like Tammy. I'm sure Hudson-Odoi will come back stronger. Pulisic will come back stronger, and we just want fresh life. I'm tired of seeing, no disrespect to William, no disrespect to Pedro. Alonso's alright in a certain formation, but I just want to see fresh life. I want to see people running down the flanks like Lampard wants to see from his fullbacks, and I want to see them create with the wingers to allow Mason Mount to shoot outside the box or be that box-to-box player that Lampard was, and just give us different options, because I'm tired of seeing, get the ball in the middle, pass to the left back, pass to the centre back, pass to the right back, back to the centre back, back to the left back, and then we make nothing. We have possession but no chances. I need to see 2-touch passing from this team. They need to learn as a team how to play. That's all. Take it one step at a time.
Fair point, man. Yeah, there was just too many silence, man. Yeah, I know, man. Scary. But yeah, you're right, man. We just need to create a lot more shooting opportunities for people like Mason Mount and people in the midfield where, quicker passes to open themselves up to get those goals. Now, Johnathan, during that break, I remember Mason Mount was one of the very few people that actually kept on training hard during that break. I remember, I think he went to Dubai or something. And he was still training, whereas some of the players were really enjoying their holidays and whatnot. Because obviously, drink water. They haven't had a break, so they wanted a holiday. Whereas this kid, this is what I like about him, man. I just love how determined he is, man. He's so determined. I was telling the boys yesterday, Matisse and Dami and a few other people, I was just on the phone with them. I was saying there's 2 players in this Chelsea team, which is Tammy and Mason Mount. They don't have the natural technical ability, but they work and work and work and work. And success is just going to come for them. Success, you cannot deny success, because when you work that hard, it's just going to happen. So what's your thoughts around this kid and giving a message to the fans that, he may not have everything right now, but there's a big chance that he may end up having everything because of the way he works?
I mean, I'm not saying he's the same player as Lampard, but if you look at Lampard's numbers when he was that age, and then you look at Mount's not doing badly at all. I think he will only get better. I mean, that's a cliche for young players. I've said it on Twitter a few times where I believe he has potential and he will do better. And people say that's a poor excuse, to judge a player by. But you can see Mount has a potential. He just needs to hone in his skills. And with someone like Lampard and more experienced players in the squad, that will happen. So if he's throwing up the same numbers as other senior players in the squad that have played for 10 odd years, I don't really see too much of an issue. I mean, as a team, yes, we didn't create enough. Yes, we didn't score enough, but we weren't good enough defensively, were we? And I've said it before, our heads go down. He was one of the only players that would continue going, that would keep his head up, that would have that positive attitude. As I said about between the lines, he does really well. Obviously, it's pressing. He's always. Another thing Chelsea fans want when you're live or when you're on the TV, you want someone to be hard in their tackles. You want them to be aggressive, and that's one thing he does. He will always put his body on the line for Chelsea, because he, as I say, he loves playing for the club. He loves just playing for his boyhood club. So I looked at a few stats last night. I mean, about his passing. You know, he does use angles well. He does. I think he retains the ball fairly well, because he does get criticised by that about that quite a lot. And I looked at some of the stats. 1.4 key passes a game. He gets, which is okay. It's not really good enough for his position. 2 shots a game, but he gets dispossessed 1.2 times a game. Apparently, this is by Who Scored. Now, I'm not someone who reads into stats massively. I think it's interesting to look into them to see how a player's done. But there was a notion that he lost the ball a lot, that he wasted the ball. And don't get me wrong, at times he did, where you'd go, on the final ball. As Sadiq said, you know, it wasn't quite there, but it wasn't as bad as people make it out. Because as a team, we didn't. No, at times I was someone that said, you know, he seemed to lose the ball 3-4 times a game in a position where he'd have the ball, he'd run on, and you'd go, that was wasted. Maybe it was his mind, it was the other players' position, it was other teams, you know, pressing a bit too much on us. But it was, for me, I just think it wasn't as bad as we look into it. And even as I said, that I feel when you look into the stats. So that's interesting to look into that kind of aspect of it. But yes, he does need to get that final ball up. And as I say, he's 5-6 years away from his peak. If he's at this position now, give him a few more years, and as long as he can, hone in on his skills and improve the basics of his game, which Lampard will help him to do. You know, shooting, let's say for example, yes, he wastes a lot of shots. Sometimes he should shoot when he passes. Maybe that's him being unselfish. But like I shouted for Hazard to take the game by the scruff of his neck and shoot more and score more. Mount is, you know, someone that I feel can do that. And if he's pushed by Lampard, I feel he will. So I'm excited to see what he can do in a Chelsea shirt. I believe he can go very far.
Yeah,
fair point, man.
I mean, you're totally right with what you're saying there. Mason Mount, I know, is focusing on becoming better and better and better. He's trying very hard. And I feel like the fans have a part to play in all of this, basically. If we keep downgrading our players, you know, it's not really going to help, you know, the players do well. The fans have a massive say, of course. Like, football's played behind closed doors. Players don't actually want to play. They don't feel it's going to be the same. They don't feel like it's worth playing and risking, you know, their health, basically, to play football just for revenue. So fans have a say in all of their play, and we need to remember that these guys are humans, and they'll push on harder and harder. We've seen guys do well for a year and then fall off, and it's all about mentality. You have to keep going and going and going. These are professionals that train day in, day out. They earn their money well as well. I don't think anyone's really overpriced for what they do. If they do one mistake, the public's basically all over them. And you know, I'm thinking about it properly from a bigger picture, not just as a Chelsea fan, just general how they act. I don't know if you guys saw Kyle Walker's posts, which is kind of true. Like, this guy's just a human being, man. Like, it's, you know, he makes one mistake and they're on your case. Like, if Mason Mount makes one mistake, his English, people will call him out. And that's something, and especially if Chelsea.
Social distancing, didn't he, when he went
with Declan Rice.
I think he was telling Declan Rice he need to come to Chelsea, and, you know, I'm not sure how you guys will feel about that. But
don't do that, man. Look, don't do that.
Fans just need to support the man, because obviously, he's 21. You know, Jonathan said this. Jonathan Woodgate. Is it okay if I call you that? Tottenham region. No, Jacob.
Real Madrid. Play for Real Madrid.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. I like
that. It was a big money move as well. I remember it was a big money move.
Big money, man. Oh, I didn't understand that move at all, but but yeah, you're right, man. Mount, you should support the man. I don't think maybe he wasn't as bad as the way you said it with the stats, which is good. I might need to start looking into that and implementing that. I mean,
it's not the be all and end all for me. Some people overplay it, but it is just interesting in points like this, because even I thought he lost the ball a bit too much. But when you break it down, it it gives you a slightly different feel of it. So
is that in all competitions or is that Premier
all
League?
competitions? That's on who scored. Yeah, that's on all competitions. 83% passing as well, which isn't bad considering how high he is up the pitch and how many risks he takes with his passing. So
yeah. Fair play. Well said, man.
Overall, just to cover up this first segment of this episode, I feel personally, I think he's had a decent season. Like, honestly, he had a nice start, just like every other youth player, which is quite expected. Had a tumultuous middle part, and which is expected. He was, I feel, managed properly as well from Frank. And then he had the break. He came back, and honestly, just before the lockdown, he was probably one of the standout players for me. He looked so sharp. And, we had so many injuries. And he, along with Barkley and Giroud and Billy Gilmore and a few other people, really stood out for us. Really, really stood out for us. And kudos to him. And I think, I overall, I'd say I'm satisfied. Sadiq, what would you say, man? Overall, how would you wrap up his performance this season in your mind?
I'll give it like a 7.5 out of 10 this season.
That's decent.
And I think that's a decent one. Maybe Johnathan might not agree with me there, but I think
I think he pushed Tammy, if not equal, with Young Player of the Season.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think Tammy. Look, if we look at Tammy's goals, it kind of came towards the beginning, if we're being honest. And I feel like, just like Mason Mount, who was playing with injuries, he didn't want to play Michy. He wasn't a fan of Giroud. Giroud wanted to leave in January. I think people forget that, Giroud started playing recently. He's playing really well. Team's getting along. But do you remember the build-up to January, how it was, where he didn't even consider Giroud at all? And I think that played a massive part on Tammy. And I think that played a massive part on the team because we don't know what's happening behind closed doors. We hear stories now. If you listen to Alex Goldberg's podcast, he tells us about the dressing room on the sorry days and stuff like that. You wouldn't really hear these things. So I'm sure a lot of things happen behind the scenes, which is why we're losing, winning, drawing per game. But yeah, Tammy had a fantastic start of the season and then kind of fell off. And I think Mason Mount was great, fell off a bit, came back stronger. So I felt like in terms of consistency, Mason Mount was there. Even more than Tammy, in my opinion. And as you said, a player wouldn't be playing that many games if there was a problem. Maybe, he gave a ball minimal times and didn't create as much, but he wasn't the worst player on the pitch. He wasn't someone that, normal fans were saying, oh, he shouldn't be playing at all. When you see that lineup, you support the team. Even if Alonso's playing, even if Williams playing, support the team. The ones that say, oh, why is he starting? Forget about that. I'm talking about the actual performance. When you watch the guy play, was he that bad? I don't think so. So, I think Chelsea are just used to high expectations. We're expecting, big signings. We're expecting ambition. We're expecting not to be like Arsenal. We're expecting Champions League. You used to fight for semis, finals, quarterfinals. And we're used to these things, but we need to remember this is a transition phase, including myself. I get very frustrated sometimes. But we need to back Frank Lampard at least 2 transfer windows where we can get those players in and help players like Mason Mount become better and to fulfill their careers at Chelsea, just with Tammy. So let's see if, I saw an interesting post from Tom, Torvers98. He said about, Conte's, not doing as well as, he should have basically when he left. And I felt it was a bit harsh because Conte called out the board. Conte gave us a real insight for Chelsea fans in terms of signings at the club. And I feel like many people forget that. We're signing average players now. It's not the same Chelsea. We're basing it off net. We sell great players. We sell Costa. We sell Courtois. We sell these players. And we bring in the likes of Morata, Bakayoko, Drinkwater. We have to be realistic. I'd rather have one big signing than 3 average signings. And that's something that's down to the board, the scouts team. And it's very important that when we bring the good youth in, we need to make sure the signings are on the same level. Like Hakim Ziyech is very good, and Alex Tellers will be very good value as well.
Yeah, look, I've said it in recent times, quality over quantity, man. I think we were just too focused on quantity previously. Look, I feel Johnathan, you might have the same sort of response. I want to get straight into the expectation side of things for Mason Mount. One of the questions I've started to ask in this series is that had it not been for the ban and had it not been for Frank Lampard, maybe some of these youth players would have got a chance. And a lot of people have been tweeting that, if there was no ban, then players like Tammy and Mount and, all of these guys, they would not even get a chance, What I want to ask you now is, how do you respond to that after, seeing what you've seen for Mason Mount? And do you see Mason being a vital member of this squad next season?
100%. Because of his versatility, because of the what he brings to the game that other players in the team just can't do. I mean, Willian and Pedro, fantastic defensively. The work they put in, we will miss it when they leave, if they leave this season. And what Mount can do is kind of take a little bit of that in his stride. As I say, that's one thing he's really good at. So I just think he is important because of what he brings to the team, because of his age, because of his willingness to play for the shirt. I don't think Chelsea have Barkley is that attacking player, but he hasn't got the same work rate as Mount. I think Mount is fairly unique in the Chelsea squad, and it's not someone that you can easily replace. And on your point about the transfer ban, I don't think probably any of these players would have played if we hadn't had the transfer ban, if we'd have signed players. But that's not a bad thing. And, it's a transition period. We've all said that. And again, January, we missed out on players as well. But January, we didn't sign anyone. Olivier Giroud then came back into the fold. And finally, people realised that he can bring something to the team. It took a bit of a burden off Tammy. Mount, he can play well with. He brings other players into play that Tammy can't quite yet do at his age. So it wasn't a bad thing about the ban. And I'm happy that it happened, because I hope it's kind of realigned some Chelsea fans thinking that we can't be signing ridiculous. Yes, we want big signings, don't get me wrong, but we can't expect 3, 4, 5 massive signings every window. We can't expect a challenge for the Premier League every year. The Premier League is a very competitive league, and Liverpool and Man City, the way they've kind of pulled away from the pack, it's going to take a while to bring that back. So yes, we do need quality over quantity, 100%. I think Ziyech, yes, he is a fantastic step in the right direction. We do still need a few more. We need the left back, centre back. If we can get another winger, if we can get another striker, that will only help players like Mount. If he has better players around him, he will improve as well, and it will help take the burden off the creativity. Don't get me wrong, I want him to try and get 10 goals next season. 10 goals, assists kind of each, if he can. That's kind of what I would say is my target for next season if I was him. But if the wingers can contribute to that, if the striker can contribute to that more, it will take a little bit less of the strain off of Mount for him to do the other all-round work that we know he can do.
Yeah, I think I read a really nice article. I think it was Peter Crouch who had some quotes recently saying that the acquisition of Ziyech is going to open up 2 players. That's Tammy and Mason Mount. He specifically said, because he feels someone like Ziyech will just open up the game a lot, and these 2 particular players will reap the benefits of being, having that space sort of created for them. Just like both of you guys said, if you put some really, really quality players in and around these 2 players, these players will get better as well. So, Sadiq, in terms of Mason Mount for next season, do you feel the same as well, that he's going to be a vital member for our team, or do you feel what some of the Twitter fanatics, and I've noticed this, that I think the locals, the people that go to the matches and whatnot, like yourself, you guys appreciate the youth players a lot. And I don't understand this sort of hate sometimes towards youth players, and also the hype as well. But the balance is, for me, is we've got some talented youth players. Why not give them a chance? Do you know what I mean? Like, we can use the money to buy quality where we actually don't have the quality, like your left back, your wings. Do you feel sometimes some of these youth players in the youth academy just get down-treated a bit too much?
Yeah, it's something that we've not seen at the club before. For many, many years, we've been talking about having the best youth team. Even the days of like Solanke, Lewis Baker, all these players that we kind of had expectations for to come into this team, but never happened. So, it's something new for us, which is why, I think Chelsea are actually taking a different approach with Frank Lampard. They brought back Petr Cech, Makelele, and all the other legends around Chelsea in the past around the squad. So they're looking at, maybe not the same way as Liverpool, but, very similar to what they've done, like very patient game. We're used to seeing Chelsea managers getting sacked after winning trophies after the following season. And I just want to see Lampard not get sacked. I want to see Lampard get chances in the transfer window. I just want to see a bit of change. I'm willing to accept, your fourth place and challenging Champions League if it means Lampard gets to rebuild a squad over the next 2 or 3 years. Then I'm all up for it. However, if the pressure's still there, we just become fourth, we missed out on Champions League, he might get sacked, and we sign average players, then the board has to get called out. Like, we call it out, and then I feel like, we call off. And so the youth might actually have the pressure. I think the youth are probably being told, look, this is your opportunity to take your chance. If you don't take it, you're getting dropped. But I think under Frank Lampard, there's a bit of lenience towards them. I think there's a bit more support. They'll get the help. Jody Morris knows them inside out as well. And, your previous question to Johnathan about them making it to Chelsea if you didn't have transfer ban, I think Tammy could have had a good shout in being like the second and third choice striker because he had so many goals. And Reece James maybe could have made it back as well, in my opinion. But the likes of Tomori, I don't think would have been anywhere near this Chelsea team. But it's very interesting to see this new era of Chelsea. Hopefully, this decade we continue to win trophies, but I don't think it's going to be until at least 2 or 3 years we win those big trophies like Premier League again, in my opinion. But, we just have to take one step at a time. I think this today's world, the COVID has taken, some of our plans away. We were expected to sign at least 4 or 5 signings. It will be interesting to see what we do now. And I think, Sancho after next year is on 1 year or 2 year left, and he could be a lot cheaper or something like that. I read something. I need to look into it properly. But if that's the case,
I think so.
Everyone just needs to wait. Everyone just needs to wait. Literally, he doesn't have to sign a new contract. And he can get one of the cheaper, man. And obviously the value's gone down. So stuff like that, I think us fans need to look at in general and say, if we waited a bit longer, is it worth it? And it'll be very interesting to see what happens next season. None of us know what's going to happen. We don't know if we're actually going to play in June. If we do, it's going to be weird, man. It's going to be really weird. And, I hope somehow the season actually doesn't continue. I just want it to restart in September, fresh start, or August, fresh start. And, just hope everyone gets better in general in the world. That's all I want. I'm used to no football now. I'm used to no football.
Yeah, we're getting used to it. But in your perspective, do you think Mount's a player that you're holding on to next season and probably plays a big part as well, or sort of like a rotational player for you?
I mean, the only way I can see it is if Coutinho comes on loan, then it might be a bit different, might be a bit of rotation in my eyes. But if he doesn't come, then he's starting every game, regardless. Loftus-Cheek's not starting anytime soon. He might come out for about 15-20 minutes and slowly get into the team, and he'll be like a fresh signing towards January. And Barkley, I don't know, I think he'll definitely play every cup game, and he might just here and there play instead of Mount. I think Mason Mount has that spot basically for Frank Lampard. Not that I want him to play every single game, but that's how I see it. He's got that 95%. That's my spot there.
Do you reckon, Johnathan, Mason Mount's a player that understands what Frank truly wants to get out of his team, the game style? I know Sadiq's mentioned many times, like, what is our style? What is our style? But I feel like the reason why he keeps playing Mount, not only he's versatile, as you guys have mentioned, I feel he really trusts him. Like, he feels that this is one guy that he understands what I want from each game, and he may be able to convey that message to the rest of the team. We've seen that as well. Like, Mount's quite vocal in the pitch as well. Like, he's directing and whatnot. I remember the moment against Arsenal that when we were leading 2-1, and Emerson had the ball, and he was directing to Emerson, booted like boot it up. What are you doing? Like, why'd you kick it out for? Do you know what I mean? Oh no, sorry. He was telling him to kick it out because Tammy was injured, and he was saying, kick it out. Tammy's injured. We get the sub now.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like he's switched on, whereas maybe certain other players are not always switched on. Perhaps this is one key reason why he consistently plays Mount as well.
Yeah, 2 years he's been with him. Yeah. I think he's just a bit more savvy, a bit smarter maybe. I think he's got a decent footballing brain. And as I say, the will to play for the shirt is something that you just can't buy. And fans have been crying out for your next John Terry's. We've got 5 or 6 of them now that can be that. We're not used to that, as Sadiq said. So we need to back them. We need to. I think Lampard clearly trusts them, and having a faith from your manager means more than most. It doesn't. People don't want to hear this, but more than what fans tell you. If your manager believes you and backs you, it means a hell of a lot. And clearly, Mount has been backed and trusted, and that's shown in his play. And yes, I think Lampard. You know, I wouldn't say it's his favourite, but he knows that he can play in a system. He's versatile. And, you know, go back to the days of John Terry talking about Jose Mourinho, where, you know, Jose would just say one little thing, send him a text, and it would mean the world to him. Lampard is very good at man management. The way he conducts himself in the media, you know, some of the things he's done recently since COVID started, very clever, but it's genuine. So I just think he's instilling the right mentality into these players that we haven't had for a long time. And we just need to sit back and enjoy the ride, because I believe it will be, you know, give us a few years and it will be a very successsill decade. I'm not saying we're going to be world beaters, but the way
will he get a few years though? Will he get it though?
I think he will. I think
if he can, and I said this on another video, if he can increase a bit, so next year he gets third and a decent run in the cups, if he can try and win something, year after that second and then first. If it takes 3 years to win the league, but we are progressing every single season and players like Mount are getting better and better, I'll accept that.
Yeah, definitely. I want to see if the board stick to it though, man.
I hope they do. And Lampard is a fan's favourite. They've never had this kind of guy in charge of Chelsea, a legend like that. We've had a Di Matteo who was good he was not Lampard's level. He is a true cult hero.
I can see like Lampard going, and then when fans get angry and like, you know, protest and stuff like that, I can see just them bringing Terry, and it'll just calm it down. Like, I feel like they just know
Terry's
exactly
quite
what
ready
to do.
yet. Yeah, I think Abramovich has sacked managers, and we've still been very successful. It's been a period of sustained success that you would not have imagined, bearing in mind how many managers and squad players we've had. But we've managed to do it. I think now the board have started to realise that Lady Luck is going to run out. We can't. It's not a sustainable way to run a club. Bringing the youth players in because of the great academy we had. You know, the amount of youth cuts we won is ridiculous. And I watched a recent game against Millwall and the under-18s in the cup. And there's, you know, you look at Lewis Bate, obviously Angerin, Broja. Those 3, you can tell they've got a little something about them, and those are the next generation in a few years. So I think we're finally starting to realise that we've got potential within. We've let a lot go in the past. And we're under Lampard, under his tutelage and his way of thinking, I believe as long as the board and him can stay on the same page, we will, you know, bear the fruits of the labour. So,
look, I think someone like John Terry, honestly, I feel like he'll be in Chelsea very, very soon, along with Frank Lampard. I reckon Aston Villa, if they get Aston Villa, they're probably going to get relegated, and he's going to be brought into our team as a defensive coach to start off with, and I reckon he'll just build up to be the manager one day. And wow, what a moment that's going to be, huh? When he leads Chelsea, that's going to be epic. But just to finish it off, final question for both of you guys. I'll start with Sadiq. Mason Mount, for you, I guess, is he? That's it. Like, you think next season he's gonna be there, or do you feel you know, we're gonna get a few more signings and perhaps he's not gonna be the person? What's the expectation, the final expectation, your call on Mason Mount for him in 2021 season?
Expectations will have to be the same as this season, with just, you know, a few more goal contributions, or, you know, scoring a few more. That's all. Like Johnathan was saying, he's done really well. Hasn't done too bad when you compare the stats to Lampard when he, you know, first started. And what we just want to see from Mount is someone that we can rely on and look towards that can change the game. Whether it's an equalizer, whether it's a winning goal, whether it's adding another goal to a lead, we just want to see a bit more from Mount saying, yeah, we can rely on Mason Mount. Not saying he can be our Hazard or anything, but, you know, Tammy's scoring, Mount's scoring, Ziyech is scoring. That's what I want to hear, basically. And I don't want to hear Mount being like, oh, this guy's just another Barkley, but he's got energy. That I don't want to hear stuff like that. So, same expectations. I think he had a very positive season. He had a very good season. He just needs to push on from here. Even if it's a little progress, a few more goals, better than nothing. It can take us very far. It can be a difference between 4th and 3rd.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Johnathan, slight different question for you. You know, would someone like Mount, if we didn't use him now, and say for instance, you know, he gets put in the backside next season, doesn't get as many minutes as he has this season, and he moves on somewhere else, and you know, fans are cheering on about Berger this season, and they want him back. And Berger was once upon a time in our ranks. Do you reckon Mount could be one of those players where if he does ever leave, he could turn into something really special, and then we're all going to be like, oh, that's another Kevin De Bruyne moment for us, or a Salah moment for us? Do you reckon he's that type of a player that could be one day?
I think so, under the right manager. I believe he could be. I don't think Chelsea and Lampard will make that same mistake, hopefully. Because, you know, we're clearly putting a lot more emphasis on youth. I think he will stay at Chelsea. I'd say he's a Chelsea boy. Whether he'd want to leave, I don't know. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens with him. But I believe as long as he adds some goals and adds consistency, because as a youth player, it's very difficult, and consistency is always an issue. So I think as long as he can add that, I think Chelsea fans, Lampard will be happy. So let's see kind of what happens moving forward. But I believe in him next season. So
brilliant. All right, well, thank you so much, guys, and hopefully the viewers got a bit more understanding of Mason Mount. I think the overall summary here is that we all believe he's had a decent season. As Sadiq said, somewhere around 7.5. Johnathan kind of agrees as well. I probably agree too. And overall, he's someone who's going to feature next season. So whether you like it or not, get on board and back the player. That's the final message, because Frank backs this particular player. So yeah, until then, see you guys in the next episode.
Take care.
Take care.